The skies above the twin moons of Valaria turned red without warning. Nobody had expected war on the day of peace celebration. The alien queen, Soroka, stood on the palace balcony with her daughter beside her. The wind was calm. The people danced in the streets. And then the sky screamed with fire. The first explosion destroyed the outer wall of the Capitol Tower. Her guards shouted and rushed to protect the royal family. Ships shaped like jagged spears tore through the sky, firing at anything that moved. It wasn't just an attack, it was a massacre. The queen grabbed her daughter and ran inside the palace. Her face showed no fear, only rage. They had signed a treaty 5 years ago. No more war, no more blood. But the creatures from the outer sectors had broken it. The Skarn were known for betrayal. Their leader had promised peace, but sent death instead. Soroka ran down the shining corridors as the roof shook and burned. Her daughter's small hand gripped hers tightly. Outside, the defenders of Valaria were falling. Their weapons were strong, but the attack was sudden and brutal. No one knew how the Skarn got past their sensors. They moved like shadows and struck like fire. As the queen reached the lower vault, her daughter was pulled from her hands by a blast. Smoke filled the chamber. The queen coughed and screamed her child's name, but there was no reply. The vault collapsed behind her. Her guards dragged her away. She resisted but was forced into a ship. It lifted into the smoke-filled sky. The queen looked down as her palace crumbled and fire swallowed the place where her daughter had stood. Her heart broke in silence. She was a ruler. But now she was also a mother with nothing left. In another corner of the galaxy, on a human warship named Grendel, Captain Raynor looked at the strange signal blinking on his screen. It was coming from Valaria, a planet that had signed peace treaties and stayed neutral for years. He narrowed his eyes. Peace never lasted in space. Someone always broke it for power or fear. He pressed the comms button and called his team. Raynor was known for his calm voice and hard fists. He wasn't just a soldier. He was someone who had lost his own home once. When he read the emergency code from Valaria, something inside him stirred. He ordered the ship to change course. They had other missions, but he overruled them. He wanted to see the truth with his own eyes. When Grendel reached orbit, it was already too late. Valaria burned. Cities were destroyed. No defense towers remained. Scanners showed no royal ship in orbit. Raynor's team went down with dropships. The surface was a graveyard. Alien bodies and crushed machines lay everywhere. Then they heard a faint signal from a broken dome deep in the ruins. Inside the dome, his team found survivors, few, weak, scared. Among them was a child, not human, not fully Valerian either. She was covered in dust, curled under a table, and clutching something in her hand, a stone with the Queen's royal crest. Raynor stepped forward. The girl looked up with wide eyes. Her lips trembled. Then she whispered in broken English, "Help." "Mom, Queen." Raynor's heart tightened. He wasn't sure why. Maybe because she looked like someone he once knew. Or maybe because her voice held something powerful. Trust, hope, pain. He knelt beside her. He didn't know who she was, but he knew one thing with certainty. He couldn't leave her behind. The child did not speak again for hours. Raynor sat beside her, watching her small hands clutch the stone tightly. His team worked around the broken dome, gathering supplies and checking for more survivors. But Raynor stayed with the girl. He could feel that her silence was hiding something deep. Not just fear, but memory. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. Her eyes moved slowly from one soldier to the next. When one of them reached too close, she backed away, but with Raynor, she remained still. Something in him made her feel safe. He didn't ask questions. He just waited. And then softly, she reached out and touched the old patch on his shoulder. The one that said Hope Division. Raynor glanced down and smiled faintly. "That's right," he said. We help people." The girl didn't smile, but her fingers stayed on the patch. It was the first time she moved without fear. He noticed the small cut above her eyebrow. He tore a clean cloth and dabbed it carefully. She didn't pull away. Her hands slowly loosened around the stone. It fell onto the floor gently. Raynor picked it up. It was smooth, royal purple, and marked with the golden crest of the Valarian Queen. He had seen it once during a treaty mission years ago. This was not a toy. This was a royal heirloom. His breath paused. The girl wasn't just anyone. She was the Queen's daughter. The one declared missing, presumed dead. But now here she was, alive and silent. His team returned with grim faces. "Captain," one of them said, "no more survivors. But we found evidence. Skarn signatures everywhere. They attacked, then left in haste, but we don't know why." Raynor looked down at the girl again. He thought maybe she was the reason they left. Maybe they couldn't find her. Or maybe they didn't know she survived. He stood up and made a decision. "We're taking her," he said. "She's important." His crew didn't question him. They saw it too. This wasn't just a child. She was a symbol, a reason to fight. A lost piece of a broken world. Raynor wrapped her in a clean blanket and lifted her into his arms. She leaned her head against his chest without a word. The ship lifted from the scorched surface, leaving behind the ruins of Valaria. From orbit, the planet looked calm, but the truth was buried in ashes. Raynor entered the med bay and placed the girl gently on the bed. Medical bots scanned her quietly. No serious injuries, just fatigue, dehydration, and mild trauma. She stared at the ceiling in silence. Raynor sat beside her again. "What's your name?" he asked. She didn't answer. Instead, she looked at him and blinked slowly. Her mouth opened slightly. Then she whispered, "Sira." It was short, gentle, but it carried weight. It was a name that once echoed in royal halls. Now it came from cracked lips and tired eyes. "Sira," he repeated. "That's a beautiful name." She didn't reply. But her fingers found his sleeve again. She held on lightly, as if afraid he might vanish. Raynor didn't move. He just sat with her, letting the quiet fill the room. Sometimes was more powerful than words. And in that silence, trust was born. Later that night, Raynor entered the command deck. "We need to send a message," he said, "to any surviving Valarian outposts. We have the Queen's daughter. She's alive." His second-in-command looked shocked. "You're sure?" Raynor nodded. "I'm sure. And we're going to bring her home. Whatever it takes." The message was sent across encrypted channels. A signal of hope in a galaxy filled with war. Raynor knew others would hear it too. Enemies, pirates, the Skarn. But he didn't care. The girl had survived. And now, she had someone who would protect her, no matter what stood in the way. The transmission echoed through deep space. It carried a code long believed lost. Royal Valarian encryption layered with human military clearance. At first, no one answered. The stars remained silent. But in a dark sector of the galaxy, a hidden satellite blinked green. Deep below an icy moon, someone was listening. General Tyrann of the Skarn bared his sharp teeth in rage. The signal meant one thing: the girl was alive. He slammed his fist on the console, shaking the chamber. His officers stayed quiet. Tyrann had promised the High Order that the royal bloodline was gone, that no heir remained. Now his lies were turning into chains. "Find her," he hissed. "Find the human ship. Bring me the girl." His voice echoed in the steel chamber. The Skarn war machine, once resting, roared back to life. Dozens of scout ships were launched. Their engines glowed with cold fury. They didn't need orders to kill, only directions. And they had them now. Meanwhile, on the human ship Grendel, Raynor stood near the observation deck. He watched the stars like a man reading old books. Quiet, focused. Behind him, the girl Sira walked slowly, her bare feet silent on the metal floor. She had begun to speak again, not much, just a few words each day. But her eyes no longer looked empty. She stood beside him and pointed to a distant red star. "That's where I was born," she said. Raynor nodded. "Valaria is beautiful from up here." She tilted her head. "It doesn't feel like home anymore." He looked down at her and rested a hand on her shoulder. "Then we'll find you. A new one. Or take back the old one." In the mess hall, the crew of the Grendel sat in silence as the broadcast replayed. Double quotes. Daughter of Queen Siraka is alive and under human protection. Any Valerian ally hearing this, respond. The message had repeated for hours. Most thought no one would hear. But hope made people listen longer than reason ever could. An alert beeped. A small craft appeared on long-range sensors. Old Valerian. Tech, not a threat, just a message pod. The crew brought it aboard. Inside was a hologram of a Valerian elder. His face wrinkled and his eyes sunken. If this message reaches human forces, then hope is not lost. We are hiding. The Queen lives. Come to us. Raynor watched the recording twice. She's alive, he muttered. He looked at Sira, who stared wide-eyed at the image. My mother? She asked softly. He nodded. Yes, and she's waiting for you. The girl's face brightened for the first time since they met. It wasn't a full smile. But it was close, course plotted. Engines charged. The Grendel changed direction toward the coordinates in the message. It wasn't far, but they had to pass near Skarn territory. Raynor knew it was a trap waiting to happen. He ordered shields at full and weapons armed. Still he gave the go. The journey was tense. No one laughed. No music played. Even the bots moved quieter. Sira stayed near Raynor at all times. She wore a small human jacket, too large for her size, but she never complained. Her eyes were sharp now, watching, learning, remembering what it meant to trust someone. One night, she stood outside the med bay and waited for Raynor. When he approached, she held out something in her hand. A small charm made from metal and crystal. This is for you, she said. He took it carefully. Did you make this? She nodded. It means protector in Valerian. He tied it to his wrist with care. The ship neared the meeting point. A quiet moon surrounded by dead satellites. Raynor watched carefully. If this was a trick, they'd know soon. But as they approached, a signal flared. Old, broken, but real. It matched the Queen's personal ID. The crew braced for what came next. A cloaked ship revealed itself slowly. It was battered and old, but its shape was unmistakable. Valerian royal design. Raynor stood tall. Sira ran to the glass, her face pale. Mom? She whispered. Raynor gave the command to open the channel. This is Captain Raynor. We have someone who belongs to you. Asterisk. The screen flickered as the channel opened. Static buzzed for a moment. Before a blurry image formed. A tall figure stood in the shadows, head slightly bowed. The outline was unmistakable. A crown rested above her dark, slender face. The woman stepped closer, and the light revealed her eyes. They were tired. They were searching. Then she saw the girl standing beside Raynor, her breath caught. Her lips moved without sound. Sira stepped forward and placed a small hand against the screen. Mom, she whispered. The Queen dropped to her knees. Her royal guards tried to lift her, but she pushed them away. Her hand mirrored her daughter's on the glass. Tears slid down her cheeks, silent and fast. I thought I lost you, she said in a voice cracked with sorrow. Every day I searched. The stars. Every night I dreamed of your voice. Sira nodded slowly. I waited, she said. He found me. She pointed at Raynor, who stood quietly behind her. The Queen's eyes turned toward him. Pain faded into gratitude. She placed her hand to her heart and bowed her head. "You have returned a part of me I thought gone forever," she said. "I owe you more than words can carry." Raynor shook his head. "She survived because she's strong," he replied. "I only helped her stand again." The Queen smiled through her tears. "Still, you are now a part of our story." The docking procedure began. Both ships aligned carefully, airlocks connected. Steam hissed as the doors opened. Raynor walked beside Sira as they stepped across the bridge between the two ships. The Queen stood waiting in the corridor, her royal robe torn but her posture proud. Sira ran toward her without hesitation. Mother and daughter collided in a tight embrace. The guards stepped back respectfully. Raynor looked away, giving them space. He had seen many reunions in his life, but none like this. The pain of separation, the fear of loss, the joy of return, it was all in that moment. Even war couldn't silence that kind of love. The Queen held her daughter close, whispering soft words in their native tongue. Sira answered with a quiet hum. Then she looked back at Raynor and reached out. "Come," she said. "You should meet my mother properly." Raynor stepped forward, unsure. The Queen extended her hand with grace. "I am Soraka of Valaria," she said, "and you are the man who brought my child home." Raynor nodded. "Captain Raynor, of the human warship Grendel." She smiled. Grendel, a strong name, a strong man. Her voice was gentle, but her eyes held power. She was not just a mother. She was still a ruler. They walked through the ship together. It was damaged but held together by will and loyalty. Refugees, soldiers, and advisors filled its narrow halls. All stopped to bow as they passed. Whispers followed them. The Queen's daughter was alive. The human had saved her. Some looked with hope, others with doubt. But none spoke aloud. In the war room, maps flickered over old consoles. The Queen pointed at the blinking red zone near Skarn territory. "They'll come for her," she said. "Tyrion won't let this stand. His lives depend on her death." Raynor folded his arms. "Then we fight." The Queen turned toward him. Slowly, "Will your people help us?" He met her gaze without flinching. "I can't speak for all humans," he said. "But I'll stand with you, as long as it takes." The Queen gave a slow nod. "Then let us prepare. For if the Skarn want war, they will find it waiting." That night, a quiet dinner was held in the royal mess. Sira sat between her mother and Raynor, speaking more than ever before. She laughed once, and the whole table paused to hear it. The Queen watched them both, her hand never leaving her daughter's. Hope had returned in the shape of a child and the courage of a stranger. The stars above the moon where the Queen hid began to flicker with motion. Long-range scanners showed faint shadows moving across the edge of space. The Skarn had found them. Their ships didn't move like others. They drifted in silence, cold and deadly, like knives sliding through dark water. Inside the command chamber, Raynor stood with the Queen and her council. Maps floated in the air, lit by glowing markers. The enemy was closing in. "They're not attacking yet," one advisor said. "They're watching, surrounding us." Raynor nodded. "They're waiting for weakness or fear." The Queen's eyes narrowed. "Then we show them neither." Outside, the refugees worked alongside soldiers. Old weapons were cleaned. Broken hulls were patched. Raynor's crew trained with Valerian fighters, exchanging techniques and learning each other's movements. Unity formed in silence. No one had time to talk about peace. Everyone prepared for war. Sira stayed close to her mother, but often followed Raynor through the halls. She asked questions. She watched how he gave orders, how others listened. He never raised his voice. He led with steady words and clear eyes. "Why do they follow you?" she asked one day. "Because I trust them," he answered. "And they trust me." The Queen watched their bond grow with quiet understanding. Her daughter had found safety in this man. A soldier from another world. A human, something once feared by many Valarians, but now he was family. Not by blood, but by action. In the engineering bay, a loud alarm rang. Sparks flew from a power relay. A young Valarian technician shouted for help. Raynor rushed in, followed by one of his crew. The fire was controlled in seconds, but the cause was clear. Sabotage. Someone had cut the wires with purpose. Panic spread quickly. Guards were doubled. Checks were run. Everyone was questioned. The Queen's face was carved in stone. "Someone among us still serves the Skarn," she said. "Find them, quietly." Raynor nodded. "If we scare the people, we weaken our defense. We act fast." But silent. Hours later, a suspect was found. A former merchant, now disguised as a refugee. In his bag was a beacon, active and pulsing. Raynor didn't speak when he saw it. He simply handed it to the Queen. She crushed it in her palm and ordered the traitor removed. No trial, no delay. Trust had a price now. The Skarn ships drew closer. Their presence was no longer hidden. Massive war cruisers hovered like shadows at the edge of orbit. Their message came through cold, mechanical, without emotion. "Surrender the girl, or burn with her." The Queen listened in silence. Then, she looked to her daughter and to Raynor. Raynor stepped forward and spoke into the channel. "Come for her, and you'll leave in pieces." He cut the transmission. The Queen looked at him. "You've made yourself their target." He smiled. "Slightly, I already was. Now it's just official." Plans were drawn. Defensive lines were set. The old moonbase was not made for battle, but it would stand. Raynor placed his crew at key points. He trusted them more than weapons. Sira sat in the center chamber with her mother, wrapped in armor built for protection, not battle. Still, her eyes were sharp. As night settled, lights dimmed across the base, but no one slept. Raynor walked the halls one last time. He paused outside Sira's chamber. She opened the door and looked up at him. "Will we win?" she asked. He knelt beside her and placed a hand over hers. "I don't know, but we won't run." He stood and nodded to the Queen. She nodded back. No words were needed. Tomorrow would be the storm. But tonight, they stood ready. A mother, a daughter, a human soldier, and a shattered people bound by hope. Asterisk the first. Blast shook the outer walls just before sunrise. Dust rained from the ceiling and lights flickered. Alarms blared. Soldiers rushed to positions. The Skarn had begun their assault, not with a warning shot, but with full force. Their ships fired from orbit, aiming to break the base before they landed. Inside the control room, Raynor stood firm. His eyes scanned the battle map. "Shields at 60%, called an officer. "Structural damage spreading along east wall." Raynor gave quick orders. "Pull teams from the storage wing. Reinforce the breach line. Hold every gate." His voice never rose. Calm under fire was his way. The Queen stood nearby, silent but watching. She wore a light armor robe, trimmed in gold and black. She looked more like a warrior than a ruler. "Now, they want to break our will first," she said. "But we have lost too much to break now." Raynor glanced at her and nodded. "Let them come. We're ready." Outside, the battle turned brutal. Skarn troops landed in dropships shaped like claws. Their armor was dark red, and their weapons pulsed with plasma. Valarian fighters and human marines stood shoulder to shoulder, exchanging fire and holding the line. The base shook again and again, but it did not fall. In the inner chamber, Sira sat behind a protective shield. Two guards stayed close, but she didn't hide. She watched a screen showing the battle outside. Her small hand rested over the stone she had carried since the day Raynor found her. Her lips moved, whispering words her mother had once sung to her. A massive explosion cracked the west gate. Enemy forces poured in. Raynor and a group of Marines met them head-on. He fired without pause, moving like water through flame. His armor was dented, his face smeared with dirt. But he didn't retreat. Every soldier around him followed his lead. "Captain, fallback point is ready," said a Marine through the comm. "We can hold the core chamber from there." Raynor shook his head. "Not yet. We lose this gate, we lose control. Push them back now." He reloaded his rifle and stepped into the smoke. Fire lit the corridor, but his eyes stayed clear. From the balcony above the battle floor, the Queen aimed. A long spear blaster. She fired with precision, dropping Skarn one by one. Her guards begged her to retreat, but she refused. "This is my home," she said. "I will not watch it fall from behind a wall." Her presence gave courage to those below. In a dark tunnel near the engine core, another traitor tried to disable power. But Sira had seen the shadow on her screen. She slipped past her guards and ran toward the corridor. The traitor turned, shocked to see her. She didn't scream. She pressed a button on the wall, sealing the door behind him. Guards arrived seconds later and secured the area. Sira stood without shaking. The Queen rushed to her and pulled her close. "You should not have left the chamber," she said. Sira looked up. "He would have done it," she replied. "So I did too." The Queen didn't answer. She only held her tighter. In the final hour of the battle, Raynor stood bleeding at the gate. His rifle was empty. His knife broken. Around him, smoke curled and enemies fell. One Skarn warrior lunged, but Raynor dodged and drove his elbow into the alien's neck. The last wave was falling. The defense had held. When silence finally returned, only groans and crackling fire remained. The base was still standing. Raynor walked into the inner chamber, armor torn and one eye bruised. Sira ran to him and hugged him tightly. He knelt and patted her back. "We made it," he said. "Together." The sun rose over the battered moon, casting pale light on the scorched ground. Smoke curled from broken towers. Fires smoldered quietly as wounded soldiers limped through ruined halls. But the base had survived. The people had endured. And Skarn had retreated for the first time. Raynor sat on a bench near the medical wing, a bandage wrapped around his shoulder. His arm ached, but his mind stayed sharp. He watched the sunrise without speaking. Sira sat beside him, legs swinging gently. She didn't ask if he was hurt. She already knew. Instead, she handed him a small fruit from the supply crate. He took it and bit into it slowly. "Tastes awful," he muttered. Sira grinned. "I like it." He raised an eyebrow. "Of course you do." She laughed softly, then leaned against his arm. He didn't move. He had fought wars, lost comrades, seen worlds burn. But in this moment, he felt something rare. Peace. The Queen entered, followed by her generals. She looked tired, but her eyes still burned with resolve. She nodded at Raynor. "You've saved us again," she said. He shook his head. "They'll come back. We both know it." The Queen agreed. "Yes, but next time we'll be ready." With allies, she turned to the Council. "Send messages to every neutral system. Tell them what happened here. Show them who stood against the Skarn, a human, a child, a people united." One general hesitated. "Many fear the Skarn too deeply." The Queen's voice sharpened. "Then let them fear us more." Later that day, a message arrived. It was not from allies, but from the enemy. Tyrion himself appeared on the screen. His face was scarred, his voice cold. "You have embarrassed me, Soraka. You've broken the order of silence. I offered you mercy. You chose war." The Queen did not flinch. She stepped forward. "You attacked my home. You tried to murder my daughter. You lie about mercy." Tyrion's mouth twisted. "Then I'll finish what I began. I'm coming, not to threaten. To erase." The screen cut out. Silence fell across the chamber. Raynor stood up and checked his weapon. "He's coming himself," Raynor said. "That's good." The Queen raised a brow. "You call that good?" Raynor nodded. "We won't have to chase him. He'll come to us, and we'll be ready." The Queen turned toward her people. "Then let us prepare. This time we end it." Armors were reforged, weapons recharged, drones repaired. Soldiers trained harder. Raynor led drills with both humans and Valerians. The line between them blurred. They moved like one unit, not because of orders, but because they believed in each other now. Sira spent her days in the command center, watching strategy sessions. She asked questions, she studied maps. She memorized enemy movements. One officer laughed and said she was training to be a general. She answered without smiling. "I'm preparing to defend my mother." The Queen met with her daughter each night. They talked about the future, about rebuilding Valaria, about peace. But they both knew it would not come unless Tyrann was defeated. Not just pushed back, but truly ended. For that, they needed more than strength. They needed resolve. Raynor stood in the old launch bay, looking over a long-forgotten ship. It had once carried Valerian royalty through war zones. Now it sat broken and rusting. But he saw something else. A symbol, a tool, a way forward. He called his engineers. "We'll fix it. And we'll use it." As stars blinked outside, a new plan formed. They would not wait. They would not hide. When Tyrann returned, they would fly out to meet him. Not just to defend, but to strike. To finish the war before more lives were lost. The stars trembled as Tyrann's flagship arrived. Larger than any vessel in the region, it cast a shadow over the moon below. Skarn cruisers flanked it, like wolves circling their prey. But this time, the prey had teeth. The defenders were not hiding. They were waiting. Inside the refurbished royal cruiser, Raynor stood in full armor. His wounds had healed, but his resolve had sharpened. The ship was once a symbol of Valerian rule. Now it was a spear aimed at the heart of the enemy. Raynor looked around at his team. Humans, Valerians, United. Sira sat at the strategy console, a headset on her small head. She tracked movements, called out signals, relayed commands. Her voice carried no fear. Her mother stood beside her, hand resting gently on her shoulder. "Stay sharp," the Queen whispered. "This is our moment." The launch signal was given. Engines roared. Fighters screamed into space. Raynor's ship led the charge. Their objective was simple: strike at the flagship. Cut off the head. End the threat. Every move had been planned. Every fighter knew the risk. But no one held back. Skarn forces responded fast. Beams of red energy lit the void. Explosions scattered across space. But the Valerian fleet, rebuilt and rearmed, moved with deadly grace. They fought not for power, but for something stronger. They fought for home. Raynor's ship dodged fire and closed the gap. Shields sparked, alarms rang, but they pushed forward. Inside the flagship, Tyrann stood on his bridge, watching them approach. He snarled. "Fools," he growled. "You chase death." He ordered all weapons to target the cruiser. The Queen activated her personal command system. A secret frequency opened. Hidden satellites powered up. Old war tech buried in the moons. Crust came online. Massive beams of blue energy struck the Skarn side fleet, clearing a path. Tyrann screamed in fury. Raynor's ship took heavy fire. Hulls cracked, systems flickered, but they reached the flagship. "Boarding pods ready," called a Marine. Raynor gave a firm nod. "Launch!" The pods shot forward and slammed into the enemy vessel. Doors burst open. Smoke poured in. And then came the soldiers. Raynor led the charge down the dark corridors. Skarn guards fought back, but were overwhelmed by precision and rage. Every step forward was earned in fire. At last, they reached the central chamber. Tyrann stood in full armor, waiting with 2 guards. His eyes burned with hate. "You dare walk into my ship?" he hissed. Rayner raised his weapon. "I didn't come to walk. I came to finish this." They clashed. Blades met metal. Sparks flew. Tyrion struck hard, but Rayner fought harder. Blow by blow, they battled through the throne room. Tyrion knocked Rayner to the ground. He raised his blade. "You are nothing." He spat. Rayner blocked with his forearm and drove a hidden knife into Tyrion's side. "Then you just lost to nothing," he said. Tyrion dropped, gasping. His guards fled. Rayner stood over him in silence. Outside, the flagship's systems failed. The fleet began to scatter. Valyrian and human forces chased them back across the stars. Victory echoed in every come line. The Queen's voice rang through every speaker. "We have won. The threat is over. The future is ours." Back on the moon, Sira ran to meet Rayner as he stepped off the ship. His armor was scorched. His face bruised, but he was alive. She threw her arms around him. "You did it," she said. He smiled. "We did it." The Queen approached, tears in her eyes. She looked at Rayner and whispered one word, "Thank you."